Welcome to the Cumbria Chamber of Commerce podcast, your regular update of business news and issues from around Cumbria. Find out how we support new business and help existing businesses to grow and flourish at cumbriachamber.co.uk. Now here's the Chamber's Business Engagement Manager, Julian Whittle, with the latest episode.
Hello, I'm here with Councillor Robin Ashcroft, the Economy, Culture and Leisure Portfolio Holder at South Lakeland District Council, to talk about the prospects for South Lakeland as we look ahead to 2020. Robin is a Lib Dem councillor for Grange over Sands and has held the cabinet post since May. Robin, let's...
Afternoon.
Good afternoon. So let's start on a really positive note. South Lakeland is the fastest growing economy in Cumbria and North Lancashire, and it has the joint lowest unemployment rate of any local authority in the whole of the UK, 1.8% as we speak. The only other authority on 1.8%, funnily enough, is Eden next door. So why do you think it is that the economy is so strong and unemployment, to be frank, is almost non-existent?
Yeah, it is very low. I think it's the location. It's what we have. I mean, obviously, the visitor economy is a hugely important part for the district, and that has high employment. It needs a lot of people to make it work. But I think it's also the diversity of the economy. We've got a lot of SMEs. Mm-hmm. We've got a lot of people in the creative sector, and a lot of companies doing their own thing and making their own fortunes. So it is important.
I mean, South Lakeland District Council can take some of the credit, I think, for the economic success, because you put a lot of emphasis on assisting businesses. I'm thinking of initiatives such as Mintworks in Kendal and Invest in South Lakeland. Tell me about these.
Well, these are important for us. I mean, we're a business-minded council. We feel that it's really a matter of government can only do so much. And that's the reality of politics. But it's important that we remove as many obstacles out of the way from businesses so that we can attract them and they can get on and do their own thing. And Mintworks has been a huge success. I mean, it's full. And we're looking at Mintworks 2. We're developing South Lakeland House.
I mean, for people who don't know it, I mean, it's a sort of it's for startups and growing businesses. It's accommodation for them.
Absolutely. I mean, it was an old
incubator
council block that wasn't being used. So we stripped it out. Put in redecorated in new furniture, got the Wi-Fi and the digital in, and it's exactly that. If you're starting out with a new business, it's relatively cheap, and you can get up and going and incubate until you're ready to move on when you need the bigger premises. And Invest in South Lakeland is your... Again, it's a strategy for attracting business into the area. I mean, we're very clear. Businesses need a number of factors to attract a workforce. And if those are not in place, then the businesses are not going to want to relocate or come or develop. Absolutely. So it is a matter of having these things in place and just giving people the opportunity to start up and get something going fresh and new.
I mean, you also help to fund Cumbria Business Growth Hub's support for businesses. I had a quick look at the stats before you came in, and this year alone, this is 2019. If anybody's listening to this in 2020, but in 2019, the Growth Hub worked with 166 existing businesses in South Lakeland, plus 99 looking to start up and 65 who have started up but are in the early years of trading. Now, do you see the growth of new businesses as key to continued prosperity?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they're the lifeblood of any economy. And I mean, you've painted a very rosy picture for South Lakeland, but we face our challenges. But at the heart of what we do is the economy, and that has to thrive. And in some ways, we have a slightly distorted economy. We've got a lot of focus on the visitor economy, which can distort productivity and things like that. But it's absolutely essential that we have things in place which attract businesses. And that they know they can work, but it's a matter of nurturing those ideas. I mean, you mentioned the business support. Now, I mean, the vision I often have is of a relatively young person wanting to start up, or a young company wanting to start up. They've got ideas, and they know what they want to do, but it's how we make sure that they don't get bogged down.
Yes.
So we can't remove the obstacles. There's a requirement for that, and that's all part of running the business. But when you're starting up, when you're most vulnerable, is allowing individuals and small companies to apply their energy to what they're best at, which is delivering their ideas, but then supporting them and nurturing them.
Well, I mean, that's what the Growth Hub's supposed to do, because very often you get people who start a business because they know the business, but they may, they've worked in a bigger business for someone else. They might understand the industry, the sector, but they might not understand about, the accounting and HR issues, which when you run a business, you've got to deal with all those, and that's where the Growth Hub can help them. We can fill in the gaps, if you like.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a matter of enabling people to do what they're best at.
Yeah.
Now, the realities of running a business, yes, you do have to go through the administrative processes, the accounting, the human resources. And they can be onerous if you don't know what you're doing. So having this kind of business support is absolutely essential to getting things up and running. And then when they reach a certain size, they can pull in that expertise, or they've learned how to do it. But it's a matter of removing those obstacles.
Well, we've talked, or you alluded a second ago to some of the challenges that businesses face. I mean, one of the big ones that we hear as a chamber, we hear time and again, is from businesses that are struggling to recruit staff. What can, I mean, it's particularly because of the low unemployment issue, it's particularly a problem in South Lakeland. What can businesses do, and are you able to help them?
Yeah, we are. I mean, it's counterintuitive. I mean, the normal rules of economics are supply and demand, and if you've got low unemployment, then you expect that to increase wages. I think at the root of this lies two things. One, yes, I mean, and it's a huge asset for the Lake District, is the importance of tourism and the visitor economy, but it's seasonal. And they tend to be low-paid jobs, so that's impacting overall on the situation. But I mean, the big challenge, I'll call it a challenge rather than a problem, that South Lakeland faces is its ageing population. I mean, we are 44% behind the national average for people between the ages of 16 and 34, and they're keen to a thriving economy. So we need to set things in place which attract people to this area. And a phrase that's used a lot these days is something known as placemaking. And it's about having an environment in place where people will be attracted. They know they can do business. It's tied in with, I mean, absolutely key is having places for people to live and work. Absolutely,
yeah, because affordable housing is, I mean, one obvious answer, because if you've got, we have in Cumbria as a whole, and certainly in South Lakeland, a shrinking working age, because there are more older people retiring than there are younger people.
And you throw in the problem of second home ownership as well, which is, we've got villages and towns which are empty.
So it's crucial that we have the homes. If people, part of the answer is to persuade people to come and younger people to come and make their home, make their lives in South Lakeland. You have to have homes for them. So what are you doing to facilitate those homes being built and ensure they're affordable?
We've set a target that by 2025 we will have, as over a 10-year period, have added 1,000 rentable social housing to the stock and 1,000 affordable homes. Now that's a challenging objective, but we're ahead of that at the halfway stage. But I think we need to take a much more holistic view about this. And it needs to be more than just places for people to live. I mean, that's a key component, but it's looking much more widely. I mean, we got involved in a very interesting project called Great Places, Lakes and Dales, which is looking at developing a model for what delivers a sustainable economy. And in simple terms, we're looking at sort of live-work units. So a young person, so it may be somebody fresh out of college, and we want to hang on to those young people who want to stay in the area. But at the same time, I think there's a lot to be said for having the confidence to let young people go away, because, the experience in London or one of the other big cities is a very important part of their learning. Have the confidence to let them go away, but then they know that they can come back. And likewise, we can look from people who come from outside, who haven't necessarily grown up in South Lakeland, but they can see an opportunity that they can relocate. They'll have a business idea or relocate a business. They want to relocate the family, so it needs to be an attractive lifestyle for them. So it's not just a matter of having the jobs. It's not just a matter of having property. It's much more about building that interesting, engaging lifestyle, which can be tied in with cultures. I mean, we've got a very strong strand in festivals, and Kendal Mountain Festival, it's well established that's one of the reasons why people want to move to South Lakeland. So in some ways, not replicating what goes on in a city, but giving some degree of equivalence that you will have a fun life beyond working.
Yes, it's the overall package, isn't it?
Yeah, completely. It's that very much that holistic approach which says, it'd be great to live and work here, and I can have that right kind of balance with it within my lifestyle.
Now, you might expect low unemployment to mean rising wage levels because of supply and demand, but actually there's not much evidence that that's happened in South Lakeland. No. I mean, around 12% of the workforce is paid at the minimum, statutory minimum level, and that's double the national average proportion. Why do you think that is? And is that something you'd like to change? I mean, do you have a strategy to attract higher paid jobs?
Well, the answer why is that the case is because, it is one of the district's assets is its landscape, and that's tied in with the visitor economy and tourism. Now, tourism has a reputation for not having particularly well-paid jobs. I think that's something that definitely needs looking at, and we're working with Cumbria Tourism. I sit on Cumbria Tourism board, and they are very focused on how we make this a much more value-added offer to people. Tied in with that, it's seasonal employment. I mean, the traditional thing, people come on holiday between the end of June and the end of September. We need to, or the businesses, we need to encourage to look much more widely, have a year-round offer. For instance, one of the reasons why our festivals, we're keen to encourage them to happen in autumn, is that extends that it's shoulder of the season, it's a shoulder event. And again, I'm referring back to Kendal Mountain Film Festival, but that brings in probably somewhere in the region of £4 million into the local economy. So it's how we develop this. But I was meeting with Windermere Lake Cruises last week, and they're launching a new boat in the summer, for the start of the summer season. But that has a year-round capability.
Yeah.
And so people can enjoy the lake in the winter, whereas with their current fleet, you're probably going to be frozen to death on the top deck. But it's that kind of thinking which, it does mean stretching the envelope. It means thinking differently about what we do. But again, moving away from the reliance on tourism. We have a very strong track record in terms of high-tech employment. We need to do more to bring that in.
It's interesting. I just mentioned this as an aside, but a couple of years ago, Professor Andrew Atherton, who was then at Lancaster University, since moved on, he spoke to the Joint Chamber South Lakeland dinner, and he identified a trend for service businesses in particular to move away from London, because historically they've been there, but they don't need to be there, and it's very expensive.
Absolutely.
And his argument was that areas that could offer what you were saying a minute ago, the package of an attractive quality of life, but if you can ally that to good infrastructure, transport and broadband, then those sorts of businesses would look at areas like South Lakeland, and they would bring higher paid employment with them. No,
absolutely. Well, a key part of our focus at the moment is on the Lancaster and South Cumbria economic region, which has been identified as potentially bringing, so we're talking about Lancaster City Council, Barrow Borough Council and South Lakeland District Council, and that has the potential to be one of the highest performing economic regions in the country. It is about building connectivity within that, which isn't good at the moment. There are issues around rail. There is certainly an issue around road usage, and particularly with a climate change world, how we address that. I think I was in Westminster during the summer, and I was speaking to Owen Smith, and this was tied in with Lido's, and Grange Lido is a major issue. And that's a project we're looking at, and it has potential whichever way we go down. But he was quoting the instance of Lido Ponte, which was an open-air Lido, very similar to Grange. It had been restored. That had attracted the back office functions from two major city banks. Now, as you've pointed out, wages are lower here than they are in the home counties. But if you're going to pull this type of business in, you need to have something to attract people who expect a certain standard of living. So it's giving them that overall package and saying, yes, life, the quality of life is important, and presenting them with that that is there and available and is attractive.
I'm glad you brought up the Lancaster and South Cumbria economic region. I was going to ask you about it because that's a partnership between yourselves, Lancaster City and Barrow Borough. What are you actually hoping to achieve with it?
Well, we want a high-performing, functional economy in this region. I mean, it has been, it's been identified that we already work closely together, but it's a matter of bringing that closeness together. And I mean, the case I usually talk about is, we've got a lot of highly qualified people coming out of Lancaster University. Okay, it's not part of South Lakeland, but actually for the economy, for businesses, for the students,
it's one economy,
that border is non-existent.
Yeah.
Likewise, we have in Barrow in Furness, it's a major hub for high-tech industries. The subsea, the technology there is the best in the world. Tied in with the opportunity for renewable energy and the technology that they're building. So pulling these two elements together. Now, South Lakeland sits in the middle of those, but we have a role to play in enabling both of those elements. So we see it on any number of levels, from culture to high tech to the tourism industry, to be able to present that to employees and to people and to visitors as somewhere which is particularly attractive and where they can succeed.
So there are synergies, aren't there, between the three?
Totally.
Yeah. I get that.
It's very much it's not an artificial construct. Yeah. It's organic. It's grown. It's already there, and then it's how we link it together. But it already exists. The assets are already there. Yeah. It's that old cliched saying, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts.
Yeah. It's the local government boundaries that the artificial construct of the region is. Yeah. Now, there's an opportunity for businesses in South Lakeland. There's plenty of scope to improve productivity.
Yeah.
Which can, coming, but we were talking earlier about the tight labour market. I mean, that's one way that employees can combat. If they can't recruit, maybe they can do more with the stuff that they've got. So with fewer people, productivity can help them. Now, at the moment, the reason I say there's scope, because if you look at productivity per job, it's 30% below the national average in South Lakeland. Is there a reason for that? Well, what can we do about it?
Yeah, I mean, there is an inherent structural element within this. Within it, we've touched on this with a focus on the visitor economy and the tourism industry, which is seasonal. So that is in many ways distorting the figures.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's, in terms of improving productivity, and it's a problem which all right, the figures come out here particularly badly, but we are not good at educating and training our people sort of for the high value jobs. And high tech, a lot of industrial sectors are crying out, we need better trained people. So it needs to be a very holistic approach to this. But again, I think part of this comes back to the economic region, is how you unlock the potential, hang on to the well-qualified people who are coming out of Lancaster University, the University of Cumbria, and not least Kendal College, which has a tremendous track record in turning out really well-educated and attractive people to an employee. The trick is how we keep them in the county, and that falls back on things like accommodation, housing, but also the startup units, and having that infrastructure in place. No, it's absolutely. I mean, improving the status of technical qualifications
is vital. I mean, it's very often the sorts of skills that FE colleges produce are the ones that businesses need. That's something that we hear. I mean, a lot of the focus of the Growth Hub in 2019 was on helping businesses to improve productivity. In 2020, we're going to be launching another campaign to help businesses reduce their carbon footprints. I'm guessing this is a priority for South Lakeland too. Yeah. What are you doing to make the local economy greener and to help combat climate change?
Well, it is a massive priority for us. I mean, we recognise the threat that climate change presents, and we were one of the first councils. A lot of other people climbed on the bandwagon now, but we were one of the very first to declare a climate change emergency. I think there are two sides to this. I mean, South Lakeland, as is the case with much of Cumbria, is very vulnerable to the effects of climate change. I mean, we've seen it with the flooding and the topography and the way it channels heavy rainfall into catastrophic flooding. So we need to be building in that resilience. That's happening in Kendal. We're looking at it in Ulverston. We need to build in this protection. And there's a lot of debate about the best way of doing it, whether you go with hard protection, whether you go with soft protection. It needs to be, again, a holistic approach. We're focused on that, and we're delivering. The flood scheme is coming into Kendal, and that is significant. I think, and this is a challenge which is faced by everybody on this planet, but particularly looking for the economic development. In some ways, it's how we identify the silver lining to the cloud of climate change, because there will be opportunities there. We're going to have to address them, and we need to address them quickly. We have a workforce which I think is adaptable, again with the focus on the SMEs, people coming up with the ideas, and how we make use of the need. I mean, when you're setting up a business, one of the first things to do is to identify your market's need. And there's a very definite need out there, and it's a matter of thinking around that. But we already have a good foundation for this. Again, in the renewable industry and the work. All right, it's in Barrow, so our neighbours, but this is where it comes back to with the economic reach, and we can start looking at this much more holistically.
You talk about the offshore wind
absolutely,
industry.
And the work that's been done there. And we have one of the largest wind farm fields in the world off our shore, so that expertise is there. So the opportunities will be there. I mean, I don't know what the solution is to climate change, but I think there are two ways of approaching it. We can either take the her shirt approach and say that, it's dreadful. We're possibly looking at end of civilization as we see it. There's an element of truth in that. But if we take that approach, I think it'll just depress people. Much better to motivate by saying, what are the opportunities? What are the solutions? Because there will be opportunities within that challenge.
Well, one of the sort of potential solutions is tidal energy.
Absolutely.
I just wondered whether you had a view on Northern Tidal Power Gateway's proposal for a barrage in Morecambe Bay to generate electricity from tidal flows, and also, of course, carrying a road between the Furness Peninsula and Heysham.
Yeah. Well, it's a massive project, and it with the potential to generate 2% of the UK's power requirement. I think the reality we are an energy-hungry society, and that, I suspect, is not going to change. So the economics are going to change. It's a massive investment. The figure I've seen is 38 million. And how we approach that. I mean, like anything else, there is a downside to it, and the environmental impact on the bay is not insignificant, but I'm sure that there are ways around it. So no, I mean, broadly, I think it has the potential to have a massive impact on the area's economy, and a beneficial impact. The more we can do to do away with burning carbon fuels, it's going to happen. I mean, and it has to happen very quickly. So the opportunities are there. I think we need to look at it holistically, but the bay is a significant environmental area, so that needs to be factored into it as well. But we're going to have to take these opportunities.
Now, moving on a bit, Kendal is the main retail centre of South Lakeland.
Yeah.
High Street seems to be a lot healthier than many, but we know that generally, bricks and mortar retail's in decline. Online share is growing year on year. Do you have a strategy to ensure? I mean, thinking particularly of Kendal, but I suppose Trevor Ulverston as well.
Yeah, no, and Kirby Lonsdale and Sedva.
The smaller ones. Yeah. Do you have a strategy to ensure that the town centres stay healthy and help them adapt as conventional retail declines?
We do. And I think the first part of that strategy is recognising the problem. It's been predicted, and I don't disagree with that we're looking at a 20% decline in retail within the high street, over the next 10 years. And so coming up with more retail and better retail is not an option. So we do need to think very intelligently about how town centres remain attractive places. And I do think there's some advantages holistically in this. I think consumerism is having a major impact on, it's a major contributor to the whole climate change emergency, and we cannot go on consuming as we've done. And the whole idea of retail therapy and going out shopping as what you do over a weekend, I think it'll be a healthy thing if people reorientate that. But of course, we need to replace it with something that's attractive, and so that people are still coming into the town centre. It doesn't die. What's shopping in there still has footfall, but the town centre becomes an attractive place. So we are looking. SLDC has its own strategic plan for Kendal. We've been working on that for a number of years. You'll also be aware that Kendal Futures, who it's a private sector partnership, though I sit on the board, and their role is looking over the horizon and strategic planning for the town, and they come up with a vision. We're going to release. We've held back on putting ours out until theirs is ready to go, so we can align. But looking at what's already there, and this is in the public domain, I think there is a great deal of overlap and synergy. And it's how we make use of that space. I do see, more retail, better retail is not the answer. We need to be looking at other functions, and you can only have so many coffee shops. But what we do have in Kendal already, and these are tied into both of these strategies, is some remarkable assets. And we have the Brewery Arts Centre, which is a leading provider of culture, and how that can be grown throughout the rest of the town to pull people in. Not necessarily growing the buildings, they have plans for development, but how we spread that cultural. It's being in a place where you can enjoy culture, and there is culture presented for rather than that very narrow view of what culture is. And we talking with the Comic Arts Festival, the Mountain Festival, there are models there that we can develop. We also have, and tied in and very close by, the brewery, Albert Hall, and the council has invested relatively small amounts, but we're in at a very early stage, which is unlocking £9 million, and we will build those. The Kendal Vision is a very visionary piece of work, and it strikes me that you then produce a town centre which is much more human. Traffic's a problem. Kendal, like many town centres, has a one-way traffic system. It's not the best way of getting around the town.
It's a lot better than it used to be, though.
Yeah. Well, yes.
I can remember the time when Highgate and Strickland Gate was just wall-to-wall traffic, before in the old days.
Yeah. But, well, I think a lot of things, we would like to get the car out of the town centre and make it a much more human space. But we do have a strategy. We're working with Kendal Futures. They're developing their vision. And I think it'll be there will be change, but it's an exciting vision for the town.
Are you concerned about the impact that Brexit might have on the local economy? We know from research we've done that many businesses in the hospitality sector are worried if the supply of migrant workers were to dry up, because we've come across hotels that say so 65% of their workforce are EU migrants at present. Is that a worry?
In a word, yes. It's a massive worry. I mean, it probably won't surprise you because I'm,
you're a Liberal Democrat,
and our position on Brexit is very clear. I think it's going to be a big problem. I don't think there's any point in wrapping it up. Now, I'm sure political opponents would argue against me, but if the hotels in the Lake District are reliant on 65% of their workforce from the EU, that is a major problem. The reality is they could close.
I suppose it's the form that the post-Brexit immigration policy might take. I mean, there's been suggestions. It was the Migration Advisory Committee that came up with this idea of a salary floor, maybe £30,000 a year. So to come here, you'd need not just a job offer, but a job that paid you £30,000 a year. And of course, most of the jobs in hospitality don't.
No, it doesn't. I mean, it's not just in the Lake District. That's the case countrywide. Yeah, I mean, I think we've been extremely well served by people from the EU, and I'll make no bones about it. I'm not going to come out and say it's going to be a disaster, because I think we'll need to think more positive than that. But it's going to be a very major challenge, and it's going to upset things. It is beyond the control of a district council. I mean, we've made our representations to government, and that's all we can do, I'm afraid.
Moving on to a transport issue, I suppose you could give the same answer that's beyond the remit of a district council as well. But I mean, the Chamber, we've been lobbying to protect the through rail service between Oxenholme and London, which is under threat if HS2 goes ahead. Now, as I say, I appreciate it. Well, in fact, even in local government terms, transport's a county council issue. But what transport improvements would you like to see as key to South Lakeland's future growth and prosperity?
Well, no, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I have very serious concerns about the advisability of HS2. I would rather see money spent on East-West links. And I think, at the moment, somebody from South Lakeland and somebody from Cumbria may say, well, HS2 is more important for us in Carlisle. But as things stand at the moment, Oxenholme to London is 2 hours 45, 2 hours 50. That is a good connection. So I think anybody travelling from Oxenholme, from South Lakeland, will probably have a longer journey. So we need to have that connectivity, which is not going to bump up the time it's actually going to take to get to London. So whether we make the connection in Lancaster or Preston or Carlisle, we don't want to be driving there. So there needs to be some rail connection that works and works in a timely fashion. More widely within the district, well, it is the connection, particularly with the Lancaster, South Cumbria economic region, and the functionality of that is getting good rail connections from Lancaster through South Cumbria and out to Barrow-in-Furness. So it's that.
What about other? I mean, I'm thinking of there's the proposal for a Kendal Northern Access route to run sort of from A6 towards Burneside and. Maybe a bypass for Ulverston, or those issues as well.
But they are very much issues. I mean, we need to put this against the context that the internal combustion engine, which is what we all rely on at the moment, so we don't necessarily want to be improving car usage, but I'm sure technology will come along in such a way that can be addressed. I mean, as you pointed out, it's a matter for the northern bypass for Kendal is a matter of the county council. We've put in we'd like it to happen, but we're not putting our planning on the basis that it's going to happen. It's outside of our control, and we're not going to put our fortunes tied in with somebody else who's making that decisions. I mean, I think Ulverston is a major choke point, and I think it's going to require some imaginative thinking to how that's addressed with. The 590, it's double carriage for much of its way, but if you're getting from the M6 to Barrow, you still end up hit several choke points. And it is, and I was at a workshop a couple of months ago, and within the budget that the county council has, it did seem to me that it was tinkering around the edges. It needs a bold approach to open it up. And we press for that.
We had the Borderlands growth deal in 2019. Now, technically, it covers all of Cumbria, but clearly the focus is on the area straddling the Anglo-Scottish border rather than South Lakeland. I wondered if you were thinking, should there be a Morecambe Bay growth deal, and what benefits would that bring?
Yes, I mean, absolutely. I think there should be. We're working on it. We've taken the approach, which I feel is absolutely sound. We launched the Lancaster and South Cumbria economic strategy in the summer. At the moment, we're very much in a listening mode. I mean, we have strategic objectives. We think we know what the economy wants, but we want to understand what our employees, the companies, the firms, and small to medium enterprises, the people who live and work here, what they feel are their priorities. So we're in that listening mode at the moment. I mean, we have a list of, I think it's about 8 projects we'd like to focus on, and we're talking about a very serious amount of money, but we're fine-tuning that. And that will be going forward shortly.
That's quite exciting. Can you give me a flavour of what those projects are?
Yeah, a lot of it's tied in with the connectivity around the bay. I mean, we've touched on that. And the transport links are not good. So that for us is a major focus to unlocking the potential of the area. We've identified across the three councils the importance of culture. Which is from the heritage side, we have a strong offer in terms of heritage tourism, but going beyond that, Arts Council England have very sensibly identified that, first of all, the biggest growth sector in the UK today is the creative industries. And that is informed by having a healthy culture that inspires people. So there is a strong element of that within it. I mean, I can't go into the specific details, but in terms of the cultural element, and one of the reasons we've aligned the portfolio, we have culture aligned with economic development, is to unlock the potential of culture and creativity. But this goes beyond, I think, what people would see as being the traditional cultural industries. To actually, we're talking about developing the high-tech elements and engineering. Creativity is a way of thinking and thinking creatively, but that has applications in engineering, in business, more widely. It's a way of viewing. So a major element within is developing our cultural offer tied in with our creative development.
It'll be interesting to see how that goes. Thanks very much, Robin.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Cumbria Chamber of Commerce podcast. You can find out more about how we're supporting Cumbrian businesses at cumbriachamber.co.uk and cumbriagrowthhub.co.uk. In the meantime, thank you very much for listening, and watch out for the next episode, which we'll be releasing very soon.